This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the bottom feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm continuing my talk with Fred Schweer of PoolRx. We're going to talk about the lifespan of the PoolRx. We're going to talk about the booster. And we're going to just touch on some things that we touched on in the first podcast and kind of clarify some points about the product. And you're definitely going to benefit from listening to all 3 podcasts, of course. But this will be another in-depth podcast on the PoolRx product. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the lifespan of the PoolRx unit and the booster. So a lot of questions come up with, 4 to 6 months. Most people's swim season, it's changed a lot in Southern California. I was just talking to one of my group members about how our season's changed here because it's getting warmer later now. Used to be 5 or 8 years ago, May would be the beginning of the pool season. It was already 90 and 100 degrees, but it's kind of shifted into June. And then school starts here beginning of middle of August. So once the kids go back to school, no one's using the pool anymore. And so we really have a pretty short season in my area now because in Los Angeles County because of the school year starting early. And then the season typically, at least for the last 2 or 3 years now, hasn't really started till June. But you want to talk about what affects the length of the PoolRx and what about the booster?
Yeah, absolutely, David. The longevity of the product, as I mentioned a little earlier, is based on several factors, but our minerals, we want to size it properly, number one, get the right amount of mineral in the water based on the gallons. We have to get that in there because we have to have the right tipping point so the chemistry works. The longevity will be influenced by the sizing. Did you put the right size unit based on the gallons? The other one is, how clean was your filter prior to installation? On our basic directions, it's, hey, we got to clean the filter first because it's granular mineral. It needs to dissolve out of the unit through the filter into the water. The minerals are not killing anything at the filter level. So we need that mineral in solution in the water. So always say, hey, start with a clean filter before you install it. The other one would be, how green was the pool prior to installation? So if you put this into a real swampy green pool, we'll get you cleared up, but those minerals, some of that mineral gets used up on that initial algae kill. And so you're going to have to add a booster sooner than later. And I'll get to the booster in a second. The other thing that is influencing is, backwashing, splash out, leaks, excessive rain. Our minerals are not, affected by sunlight, by heat, or evaporation, but they are affected if they lose. If you're losing water from backwashing, splash out, or leaks, or you have to, you're getting heavy dilution. Obviously, our mineral concentration is going to be out of the water as well, and so that will have an effect on the longevity. The other ones are pretty typical, like just your normal pool chemistry ranges are important. Normal pump run times, normal filtration. All of those things, put pressure on your pool. So if those are all in normal ranges, you're going to have a better, a better experience, a longer life of the minerals. The nice thing is, we do have a booster, and so over time, the minerals, they do get recharged as they pass over the unit, but over time they also get used up from killing algae, and they get filtered out. Over time, the mineral concentration does get reduced in the water. as that happens, you're going to notice, 4 to 6 months after putting a PoolRx in, that your chlorine demand starts to go back up. And that, like I said earlier, it's because the microalgae in the water can start growing again. Once our mineral concentration goes below a certain tipping point, that microalgae has the ability to grow, and your chlorine demand will go up. You're still going to be clear. It's just going to take a little bit more chlorine. You're going to start noticing your chlorine demand going up. The second noticeable sign would be, your water's in normal ranges. You got a good, it's in normal chemistry range. You got a good free chlorine reading, but it's just looking kind of dull or cloudy. That's the next noticeable sign. And then the third one is pretty obvious. If you see any hint of algae, a little mustard spot or a little tinge of green, at that point we're overdue. The minerals are used up and filtered out, and it's definitely time to add a booster. And what the booster is, as you know, David, is just it's the same mineral that's packed inside the original unit. We have a blue booster that handles 7,500 to 20,000 gallons, and a black booster that supports the 20 to 30,000 gallons. And all you really do is like you do an install for a regular PoolRx. You want to make sure your water's in normal range. You want to make sure your filter's clean, and then you just open up that jar and you dump that booster into the skimmer or pump basket, and you run your pump long enough for all those minerals to dissolve. And what's going to happen is those minerals are going to dissolve, through your filter into solution in the water. Those minerals will raise the mineral concentration back up in that water, and you're going to be algae free and using less chlorine with it by the next day. As that water with the booster minerals in it flows over that original PoolRx unit that you leave in the pump basket or the skimmer, the booster minerals will be recharged to last for another 4 to 6 months. And then the following year, you want to start with a new unit, because the alloy cylinder in there does get scaled and it loses its connectivity with the minerals in the water over time. So every year it's a new unit. 4 to 6 months later, or when necessary, you can add the booster. And then the other reason for the booster, as you know, David, is for those larger bodies of water. So you can kind of mix and match based on what you're supporting. We can support any size body of water. We also have a commercial unit and a 10-pound bucket of minerals that can support pools from 150,000 to 500,000 gallons. And obviously, we can go higher than that. We've done, million gallons, 2 million gallons, no problem. Just about getting, the right amount of our specially treated alloy in the system, as well as enough minerals to support the gallons. To make it simple, guys, it's pretty much a PoolRx unit each spring, and at the end of the summer, when you need to, you can add the booster. So that's the basics of it.
Yeah, for a saltwater pool, the PoolRx is compatible with salt systems. I think there is one thing that you need to do though when you're initially adding it to a salt pool. Since the saltwater pools, the pH is like 8.2, 8.4. It just runs super high. It's just a natural byproduct of the production. You would want to lower the pH at least to 7.4 before adding the PoolRx unit so the minerals dissolve. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, you've been doing this a while, and I know you've been using PoolRx a while. So yeah, the minerals are granular and they need to dissolve into solution, and it's going to be easier to dissolve into solution in normal pool chemistry range. And I always say, hey, let's target like a 7.2, 7.4 prior to install, just because, to your point, like you said, that those salt chlorine generators are producing a pH of, a chlorine of about 13 coming off that cell. So that's why they're always driving the pH up. And when they're in that scaling mode, it's pushing calcium out of the water. And so I would rather the minerals have easier time dissolving into solution, rather, in that, 8.0 plus 8.2, 8.4, where it's going to take longer for those minerals to dissolve into the water. And that's where you can see, that undissolved mineral, kind of stick to the scale, before it dissolves. And so to avoid that, just, it's not a huge factor, but again, it just leads to, let's keep it in normal pool chemistry ranges. And it's better to start at that lower level, because as you're producing, as that salt chlorine generator is running, it's going to keep driving that pH up. And so for the initial install, yeah, I think 7.4 would be great.
And then for a saltwater pool, of course, it's going to be the same effect where you're going to notice the chlorine's holding in the pool longer. And I've noticed that sometimes you have to turn the salt production down to even as low as 30%, because otherwise you're going to just be producing way too much chlorine. And typically, the saltwater pools have a lot less cyanuric acid in them than the trichlor pools, and that could be a problem too. So that's a key factor too. You lower that salt production as soon as you put the PoolRx unit in.
That's right, David. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the benefit not only to the Pool Service Pro, because you're going to be able to use less acid to keep that high pH in normal range, but it's also a benefit to the homeowner, right? You're going to prolong the life of that salt cell if you're producing less, if you're having to produce less every day. So if you can turn down that salt chlorine generator, it benefits both of you. And one additional note is, there is some zinc in our product. It is a natural descaler. And with this, we don't sell it as a descaling product, but the way that zinc works is that it's going to prevent the scale from attaching as easily to surfaces, especially the salt cell. So you're not going to have to clean that salt cell as frequently, which again is a benefit to the homeowner. But yeah, you're going to definitely notice that you can turn down that salt chlorine generator, and all we need again, guys, is to have 0.5 to 1 part per million of free chlorine, and everything else in normal range for us to work as advertised. So huge benefits for salt pool customers.
Yeah, and you mentioned using less acid because if you turn down the production, those side effects from the production of the higher pH gets reduced as well. So I think to clarify that, PoolRx is going to make the chlorine last a lot longer in the salt pool, which means that if you're set your salt output at 80% or 100%, you bring that down to 30 or 40%, you're going to have less of that side effect of the higher pH. So it does do two things actually in a saltwater pool, which is great, or actually three things if you count the zinc as a descaler.
Absolutely, it's kind of a no. It's really works great in all pools, but the nice thing about salt pools is you can really tell that your chlorine, that's a great test of showing you, hey, man, this chlorine's much more active and available. So for folks that don't believe it, try this in a salt pool. You'll definitely see the benefit of what PoolRx is doing as far as the chemistry goes.
Let's just talk a little bit of compatibility because a lot of people have the salt water generator, then they have UV and ozone attached to it as well. And then the Pool Pro also likes using enzymes and phosphates. A lot of Pool Pros like using borates. So PoolRx generally is, I'm just going to say, I said all those together because it's compatible with all the things I mentioned.
Yeah, that's correct. If you're making money selling phosphate removers once a season, that's fine. It works with all those. It works with borates. Yeah, again, not necessary based on our chemistry and our science. But if you want to use those products as another layer of support, they have no adverse interactions. The ones we would not want you to work to use would be bromine. So any of your spas, you're going to have to start with fresh water, clean filter, and use PoolRx and a little bit of, maybe a tablespoon of dichlor once a week, a little non-chlorine shock. So no bromine, no sodium bromide, no biguanides, and no other copper-based products. So we are your algicide. And again, don't use with fish, even though we have these new sizes for fountains and ponds and stuff. Don't use with fish. Fish don't react the same to chlorine and minerals as we do, as mammals do. So, but yeah, all those other products are fine. Just really based on if you want to go less is more, you can go PoolRx and not need those. But again, if you want some extra other layers of support and you're actually making money selling those products, you'll be fine.
The last thing I guess we can touch on before we end here is Cal Hypo. It's pretty popular in Texas. Florida is becoming a lot more popular. It's always been kind of popular here, but liquid chlorine has always been more popular. It's trichlor, of course, is the number one sanitizer of choice in Southern California. But Cal Hypo and PoolRx, there are a couple of cautions when using it. It's nothing that's incompatible, but it's just how Cal Hypo kind of reacts in the water with it, right?
Yeah, correct. So our basic instruction is to err on the side of caution. First of all, not all cal hypo is made the same, and that's one variable. But what we say is we need you guys to dissolve and dilute your cal hypo before pouring it in the pool when you're using PoolRx. If you don't, in some cases, you sprinkle that cal hypo granular around the edge of the pool, and it settles to the bottom before it dissolves, and it can instantly oxidize and turn black or gray. So that is totally avoidable if you just take your 5 gallon bucket of water and pour your cal hypo granular into the 5 gallon bucket of water, stir it up for a little bit, and then slowly pour it in the deep end. it will prevent any of that cal hypooxidation. And some people think, oh, I can still sprinkle it in and I'll brush it up real quick. No, in some cases it instantly oxidizes. So that's the one. All other types of chlorine we have any kind of granular chlorine is has no impact on that. But cal hypo is the one that we ask you to dissolve and dilute the cal hypo before you pour it in. Cal hypo tabs, no problem. So yeah, no issue there. It's just that granular. And again, guys, it's not it's not all. Uh, there's a lot of cal hypo out there, but I would rather you avoid that issue than have to fix it.
And the guy should be doing that anyway because pouring it directly on certain pool surface types is not advisable.
I I know, David. It's but we people are cutting corners and especially if you're using PoolRx, you should just make sure you dissolve and dilute it. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple.
I always think liquid chlorine is better anyway because it's just doesn't add the calcium, it doesn't cloud the water. But I know some areas liquid chlorine is not as readily available as the cal hypo. Understandable.
Before we go, David, I know we want to wrap this up. Just a couple quick notes, guys. We talked about sizing, installation, and maintenance. A couple of basics that I want to cover are when you install this, you want to make sure your filter's clean. If you have a DE filter, you need to actually clean the grids, put the right amount of DE in there. If you can bypass or put it on recirculate and bypass the DE on the initial install, even better, because that mineral won't get caught on that DE filter. So that's be my first choice. If you don't have time to do that, you don't want to recirculate or bypass that DE and come back in a few hours. If you don't want to do that, you want to put on a DE filter, you definitely want to put it in the skimmer basket furthest from the pump. Make sure that skimmer has some flow, and make sure that you install it at the start of the pump run cycle for the day. That will give the minerals more time to slowly dissolve into solution and more time to get into solution in the plumbing before they have to pass through that DE. I know DE is not is losing popularity, but just for those folks, and again, that also leads to the getting that mineral into the water. We don't want to get it caught up on the DE. We want to get it in the solution in the water. The second thing about installation, guys, is if you have variable speed pumps, which is almost everybody now, our directions say 3 to 4 hours. It's going to dissolve in 3 to 4 hours. That's probably more on your higher speeds, your higher RPMs. If you're not going to be able to do that, and you're running it for 6 or 8 hours a day on variable or longer, you want to put the product in at the beginning of the pump run cycle, ideally, so it gives those minerals time to dissolve into solution through the filter into solution in the water. And the longer the pump runs, the better on that initial install. And then when we talk about not cleaning or backwashing after install, that is more, the concept here, guys, is that some of that mineral does get caught up in the filter. And the longer you have for that mineral to dissolve through that filter into the water before you have to clean that filter again, means the more mineral that you paid for is going to be in solution in the water, again, leading to better longevity. So, but again, if you're clearing up a green pool, it's a little bit different. You're going to have to run that pump 24 hours and come back that next day, and you're going to have to probably clean that filter because of all that dead algae. So ultimately, guys, if when you have to clean the filter, you have to clean the filter. No matter if that pressure gets to a certain point that you got to backwash or clean it, then that's what you got to do. But ultimately, the initial install, if we can get that right, we can get the most bang for your buck, and it'll be a great season for you. This product, we've been saving people money and keeping people algae free since 1994, and it's the real thing. I mean, this is really, there's nothing like PoolRx out there. That's why I love being a part of this company. But we are really unique compared to anything else on the market. And we really set ourselves apart, with our mineral formulation, the way that the product's chelated, the way the product reacts with our specially treated alloy to last for up to 6 months. So yeah, there's nothing like it. If you're a pool service professional, even if chems included, it's absolutely no brainer. You're going to save yourself time and money. If you're charging for chemicals, you can charge for PoolRx. You're going to be spending less time at these pools, and you're going to have a happier customer. So great for both sides, and obviously great for the homeowner on so many levels, with not only water quality, clarity, safety, longevity, the whole experience of always having a nice clear pool. So great for everybody involved.
Yeah, and definitely a believer in the product. And if you look at the reviews anywhere on the internet, you'll see that you guys get stellar reviews. So it's not just us talking here. Consumers over the last 30 years have really loved, and the pool pros have really loved PoolRx, and you'll find all that we're just not talking here. There's a lot of empirical evidence backing us up here. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate it as well. Thanks, everybody.
And if you want to get the other parts of this series, the easiest way is to subscribe to my YouTube channel and the episodes will be sent to you, or subscribe to the podcast. You can also find them by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, clicking on the Pool Guy Podcast Show icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of the recent podcasts. You can find those there. You can also put in the search box PoolRx, and they'll come up there as well. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.